Hey guys, Mark here from Mark's Whole Scale Trains. Welcome back to the channel. I'm going to do a video here on some Lionel couplers that we've probably heard before. There have been some problems with certain couplers coming uncoupled in the middle of a consist while you're running your trains, and that can be a big problem because if you're not paying attention, the engine will eventually run into the cars that are stalled on the track because a coupler had opened up and let loose. And I kind of discovered the problem on some of my Lionel couplers. Now, there's so many different couplers that are out there, but these lobster claw type couplers can be somewhat problematic depending on the style that they are. But with this particular rolling stock, this tank car, this is the one with the sound in it. And I recently got this. And the coupler itself was letting loose. There's a spring that allows the coupler, if you're going to use the magnetic uncoupling devices that are on tracks, it allows the coupler to open up by that little shaft, that round circle shaft there, to be pulled down by the magnet and open the coupler. The problem is the spring that's in here, if you can see, I don't know if you can see that or not, but the spring itself, I'll point it out. Let's see if I can point it out. I don't know if I can point it out here, but the spring itself is up inside here. And it's a little black spring. I'll get a better shot of it in a minute. Yeah, the light's not going to do it. But that's what holds the tension on the coupler from coming undone when it's running. But the problem you have is sometimes those springs, even though they're tightened down all the way, they don't hold. So through normal vibrations on the track and the pulling of the train to even uneven track will allow this coupler to come uncoupled, and then you've got a problem. So right here is the little tab that gets pulled down if you have one of the uncoupling devices. But if you just kind of tap on this, and you can kind of see that you pretend it's some vibration, you see that it just kind of flew right open. And that's what's happening with some of the Lionel couplers. I haven't had any problems with MTH, but these Lionels, I've had several problems with them. And again, if you just touch it, it opens up. So the vibration when you're running the train, or like I said, if it happens to go over an uneven part of the track, it can open up and let loose of the cars. So it's just a problem that they've had here with the tension that's put on the coupler by the spring that they include. And I'll show you that here in a second. Okay, so here's a better view of it from the underside. This is the spring that I was talking about. It's held on by a Phillips head screw. There's a shaft that runs along this portion right here. There's a shaft, and then the spring just goes over the shaft, and it's held on by this Phillips head screw. Like I mentioned, though, that it's just not strong enough. You can try stretching the spring. You can do whatever you want. But it's just not strong enough to stop this thing from vibrating open. So what I ended up doing was I removed this spring. I still have the coupler functional, but what I ended up putting in here was a piece of neoprene, and I'll show you what I did. All right, so here's what I ended up doing. I took the screw out, I removed the spring, and I put in this piece of neoprene tubing. Excuse me. As I mentioned, it's 3/32 inside diameter. You can use whatever you want. But this that's maybe about 4 or 5 millimeters long. I just made it as long as the shaft that's on there. And what that does is it makes it pretty tough for this thing to even open at all. It's still functional. You can still open it by hand, but it takes a lot of pressure to get this coupler to open. I don't use those track uncoupling devices, so I'm not worried about it. I just don't want this thing to come unopened when I'm running a 30-40 car consist. This happens to be in the middle and then lets loose. That's happened a few times, and it's totally irritating. I don't know why Lionel doesn't do something about it, but this is what I did. The black, it hides it nice with the neoprene fuel tubing, and it keeps the tension really strong on this coupler. If you happen to use the uncoupling device, you probably want to think of a different way of doing it because this is not going to work with that device. It takes a lot of pressure to open up this coupler, but it still is functional. So now when I'm running this train, I'm not having that problem or worry about a coupler giving loose with some of the Lionel stuff. There are different couplers that they have. So Lionel cars, I know they've got different couplers. This just happens to be on this one here, the way that they've got it configured with the spring. It just was not good enough. So I made this change. I made this modification to it. It's been working fine. They're not letting loose and opening up. So that was my main reason for doing this. But I figured I would just share this with you. This is just my way of doing it. If you guys have a way of doing it or something different, I'd love to see that. But this just happens to be the way that I did it. So I figured I'd share that. And other than that, that's it. We'll talk to you guys soon.